My brother turned my music studio into a drone lab while I was working overseas, and now my parents think I'm the problem for wanting my house back. I knew something was off the second I stepped out of the Uber and onto my own driveway. The humming was unnatural, high-pitched, rhythmic, and wrong, like a chorus of electric mosquitoes trapped inside my house. My name is Caleb Morrison. I'm 32, live, or used to live, in a modest bungalow in Torrance, California. I'd just come back from an 18-month aerospace contract in Chile. High-altitude drone mapping, remote terrains, plenty of time to dream about one thing, coming home to my music studio. My sanctuary. My reward. I unlocked the front door and stepped into madness. Caleb, you're back. My mom's voice floated from the kitchen, too chipper. The smell hit me next. Burning solder. Melted plastic. Machine oil. I barely got my bag down before I heard the whine of motors. Tiny propellers buzzed past me, two, maybe three mini quadcopters zipped through the hallway, chased by flickering LEDs and the distinct screech of overworked servos. I followed the chaos into what used to be my studio. Gone. My entire studio, thousands of dollars worth of soundproofing, monitors, patch bays, synth racks, ripped out. Instead, the room was a Frankenstein lab of carbon fiber frames, 3D printers, soldering irons, exposed wiring, and half-disassembled drones hanging from ceiling hooks. What the hell? I muttered, backing out. A figure crouched by a desk in the corner, half hidden behind a wall of blinking monitors. He turned slowly, adjusting his cracked lens glasses. Yo. My brother, Trevor, gave me a nod like this was completely normal. Trevor is 36. Two-time college dropout. A parade of failed app ideas behind him, most recently Flexed, an Uber clone for gym trainers that never made it past beta. The last I heard, he was living in our parents' basement and incubating the next big thing. I guess he found it in my house. What is this? I asked, not bothering to keep my voice down. He grinned. Welcome to HiveLab. You're looking at the future of drone-based STEM education. We've already got 2 schools interested in piloting. Hive what? It's a working name, he said, standing up. But check this out, optical flow stabilization. Custom code. Machine learning modules tied to environmental sensors. Dad and I spent weeks debugging it. Dad? Right on cue. My parents appeared behind me, looking far too pleased. Isn't it exciting? Mom said, clapping her hands. Trevor's really found his passion. Why is he in my house? My dad raised an eyebrow. Your brother needed space to build something meaningful. He's got momentum now, Caleb. Be supportive. I looked around, trying to find any sign of my old life. Even the acoustic panels were gone. Where's my gear? Oh, we had to move all that, Trevor said, waving a hand. Most of it's in the garage. Some of it didn't survive the transition. The transition? Mom laid a hand on my shoulder. You're being selfish. This is Trevor's shot. You've already got a job. He needs this. My house whined and buzzed around me. Drones zipped through the hallways. The floor vibrated with the hum of battery chargers and spinning motors. I hadn't even been back an hour, and I already knew. They'd picked him. Again. By the third night back, I was sleeping in a $79 a night motel off Hawthorne Boulevard while a drone buzzed against my bedroom ceiling at home like a trapped wasp. It had ricocheted off the closet door, smacked the light fixture, and dropped near my foot before Trevor shouted from the living room. That's normal. Just calibration drift. I tried reasoning with him earlier that day. I just need my space back. I told him over cold coffee at the kitchen counter. This isn't a dorm. This is my home. I built that studio with my own money. Trevor didn't look up. He was scrolling through something on his cracked iPad. Caleb, you're thinking too small. This isn't just about you. This is about innovation. We're positioning for a real Series A round. What does that even mean? I snapped. You've got no revenue, no clients, and a house full of flying batteries that keep slamming into the walls. He looked up then, all faux calm. You're not seeing the vision. Drone racing is just the entry point. Eventually, we integrate VR telemetry, real-time object detection, AI pathfinding. Trevor, I interrupted. You've been at this for what, 2 months? On what budget? He blinked. R&D is messy. I'm using the environment. The environment is my house. That's when Mom and Dad arrived. They came over with plastic containers of tuna casserole like it was a family reunion instead of an intervention. I barely got a word in before they launched into rehearsed lines. You always make everything about yourself, Mom said, pouring sweet tea like we were back in Alabama. Your brother is finally building something with purpose. Can't you just be happy for him? He turned my home into a damn flight simulator, I said, gesturing toward the hallway where 3 drones hovered near the smoke detector. The electricity bills tripled. I can't sleep. There's condensation forming on the windows from all the heat these things throw off. Think of the future, Dad added, patting Trevor's shoulder like he was some misunderstood genius. This is the kind of hustle that gets noticed. STEM initiatives. Tech incubators. VC capital. Trevor perked up. Exactly. I've already had 2 virtual meetings with potential angel investors. You should have seen the pitch deck, clean, full-stack integration with live FPV feeds and immersive overlays. It's all about storytelling, man. Then, like it was a compromise, he said, I was thinking, since you're into music and all, we could convert the laundry room into a meditation zone. Throw in a beanbag, couple acoustic tiles. You'll get your own corner again. My studio had $18,000 worth of gear, I said slowly. You ripped it out and replaced it with drone fuel and homemade circuit boards. You're offering me a beanbag chair and a 6x8 laundry closet. He shrugged. That's startup life. That night I checked into the motel. The room smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and burnt toast, but at least it didn't vibrate with lithium battery chargers. I started renting time at a local studio just to make music again. $40 an hour, headphones too big for my head, no natural light. But it was quiet. Nobody yelled at me for interrupting beta test flight protocols. And still, my parents called every other day. Why are you being so cold? Mom would ask. Trevor's trying his best. So was I. But I was starting to realize that never counted for much in this family. It was a Thursday night when the truth cracked open, and I fell through. I've been venting in a small online forum for displaced creatives, people with home studio woes, family problems, gear disasters. One guy messaged me privately, dude, check your title history. Make sure nobody's taken a loan out against your house. I almost laughed it off. But something about Trevor's smugness the last time I visited nagged at me. The way he'd said, you're lucky, man. This place is basically appreciating for both of us now. Both? I logged into my mortgage account, then cross-referenced county records just to be thorough. That's when I found it. A second home equity loan had been opened in my name 6 months ago. $47,000. Approved electronically, all with my credentials. Except I never applied for it. I never saw a single cent. The transaction history made me nauseous. $12,600 to a VR headset distributor. $8,200 to a drone parts wholesaler in Texas. $5,000 filed under algorithm patent filing. $900 to DoorDash, for God's sake. I stared at the digital ledger like it might rearrange itself into something less insane. When I confronted Trevor the next day, he didn't even flinch. It's a family co-investment, he said, typing code with one hand and holding a protein shake in the other. Think of it like seed capital. You forged a loan using my house as collateral, I said. My voice was low, but I was shaking. That's felony fraud. Trevor spun around in his office chair. No. Don't be dramatic. I used your name, but the house belongs to both of us. Spiritually. I blinked. Spiritually. He stood up, like he was about to give a TED talk. Look, Caleb, I'm building something disruptive. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm pulling this family forward. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Sharp, bitter. By committing bank fraud and blowing the money on headsets and cheap lithium? Dad's voice rang out from the hallway before I even realized he'd arrived. Don't exaggerate. It's a gray area. Gray area? He used my identity. Mom appeared behind him, crossing her arms. Maybe you should ask why Trevor felt like he couldn't come to you directly. You've always made him feel lesser. You're defending this? I looked between them. He faked my signature. He listed this house as his business address on an LLC. He's not just trespassing, he's legally entangling me in whatever fantasy startup he's building. Trevor shrugged. Well, yeah. Hive Labs HQ needs a corporate domicile. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. A day later, I sat in a law office 3 towns over. The attorney wore rectangular glasses and a plaid tie. He listened patiently, nodding at the paperwork I brought. This is definitely fraud, he said after a long pause. You have grounds to sue. But, since he used shared access and the address is in both your family's names, it could get messy. I rubbed my eyes. What kind of messy? Emotionally manipulative messy. Public family mess. Civil court drama. Are you ready for that? I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the loan form with Trevor's shaky version of my signature at the bottom. No, I wasn't ready. But I was running out of reasons to pretend it wasn't war. I was staying in the motel full-time by then, only dropping by the house when I had to pick up mail or grab a clean shirt. Every visit left me more drained. The air inside was always thick, too warm, too dry, like the place had stopped breathing normally. Trevor had rigged up a cooling system using wall fans, foil tape, and plastic dryer tubing that snaked along the hallway ceilings like vines. He called it thermal exhaust redirection. I called it a fire hazard. The day before it happened, I found 6 more chargers plugged into a single outlet in the basement. The surge protectors were daisy-chained, humming like a cheap generator. I took a photo and texted it to Trevor. Me, you're going to burn the house down. Trevor, relax. It's all low voltage. Redundancies built in. I watched, 3 tutorials. That was Wednesday. The fire started just after 2 a.m. on Thursday. The motel phone rang. The clerk sounded half asleep. Are you Caleb Morrison? There's a fire truck at your house. They said you should come. By the time I got there, the block was lit up with flashing lights and caution tape. Smoke poured from the basement window. I could see foam stains dripping from the siding like ghostly fingers. Trevor was on the front lawn, barefoot, wearing a flight controller headset like a crown. My parents stood beside him, wrapped in matching silver thermal blankets, looking more annoyed than scared. A firefighter stepped out of the house and walked toward me, tugging off his gloves. You the owner? Yeah, I said. What happened? He held up a scorched plastic box, or what was left of one. Overloaded outlet. Too many lithium polymer packs charging off a modified strip. Caught one of the shelves on fire. You're lucky it didn't reach the main floor. I swallowed. How bad is it? He paused. You got insurance? Of course. Well, he sighed. This isn't gonna go your way. Later, the adjuster laid it out for me in painfully clear terms. The policy was void. The house had been used for undeclared commercial purposes. Between the drone parts, the soldering setups, the industrial battery storage, and the box labeled Hive Lab HQ, it was a clear breach of contract. Even the fire marshal flagged this, he said. That basement looked like a junkyard exploded. Trevor's reaction? You're blaming me for the wiring in this ancient house? I was trying to upgrade it. You should thank me. I should thank you? Without me, this place would still be a boring shoebox. I gave it purpose. Later that night, I sat across from my parents in the motel's breakfast room, surrounded by empty waffle batter dispensers and the hum of a vending machine. I told them the claim was denied. I told them the house was unlivable. Mom blinked, like I just said we were out of milk. Well, these things happen, she said. Maybe this is your sign to rebuild. Bigger. Smarter. Dad nodded. Trevor has a revenue forecast that looks really promising. Did he show you his latest slides? I just stared at them. Their son had set my home on fire with his fantasy startup, and all they could do was quote his PowerPoint projections like it was gospel. I realized then, I could lose everything, and they still wouldn't see me. By the following week, I had nothing left to wait for. The house smelled like melted wire and drywall rot. The basement was still cordoned off. I'd already lost my insurance. I was paying out of pocket for a motel room and a rental studio. And Trevor? He doubled down. He replaced the scorched chargers with newer ones. Bought a giant retractable projector for investor demos. Repainted one of the walls with matte black and slapped up a Hive Lab logo he printed himself at Kinko's. I stood in what used to be my living room, looking at it all, and something just snapped into place. This wasn't my brother tinkering in a corner anymore. This was theft in plain sight. It was delusion with logos. And it was going to end. That afternoon, I had my attorney draft a formal cease and desist, along with a 30-day eviction notice, citing unauthorized business use, property damage, and financial fraud. I emailed it to Trevor. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed with a calendar invite titled Collaborative Family Strategy Meeting, 7 p.m. Location, my own kitchen. I showed up late on purpose. Inside, they were all waiting: Trevor, my parents, and even my Aunt Liz, who hadn't set foot in that house since 2014. There was a laptop open on the table, projecting slides onto the TV. Trevor clicked through with the confidence of someone pitching on Shark Tank. Slide 1, the vision. Slide 2, conflict resolution, pathways to co-ownership. Slide 3, buyout proposal, $60,000 lump sum. I stared. Are you serious? Trevor beamed. We believe this represents a fair solution. You buy me out, and I'll sign the house over to you. Clean break. No more tension. Mom nodded. He's offering you an exit ramp, Caleb. That's maturity. I blinked. You want me to pay $60,000 to undo the fraud he committed against me? It's not fraud, Trevor said, smiling like a motivational speaker. It's a pivot. And look, I'm valuing the brand equity of Hive Lab fairly low, so you're getting a deal. I turned to my father. And you're okay with this? He sighed like I was the problem. We're trying to keep the family together. Don't make this about pride. Trevor suddenly got emotional, arms wide, voice cracking. I just wanted to build something. But now I'm the villain? After everything I've done to try and bring us forward. I laughed. You set my house on fire. That wasn't intentional. You stole my identity. It was for all of us. The whole time, the projector kept cycling back to the same slide. Buyout proposal, $60,000. My lawyer filed for emergency injunctive relief the next morning. I had the receipts, the forged signature, the fire marshal's report, the bank documents, the photo of the projector Trevor bought 2 days after the fire. We weren't going to collaborate. We were going to court. I thought they might finally understand the gravity of it then. That maybe, just maybe, they'd take a breath and stop treating this like a startup hiccup. But all I got was a voicemail from Mom later that day. You're tearing this family apart, Caleb. Over what? A few gadgets. No, I wasn't tearing anything apart. I was finally cutting the cord. The judge granted the restraining order in under 15 minutes. The paperwork hit Trevor's inbox the same day. It stated clearly he had 72 hours to vacate the property and remove all business-related equipment. Any interference would result in law enforcement escalation. He posted a TikTok that night titled, "When the System Tries to Silence Innovation." He filmed himself walking around the house with sad piano music in the background, giving a teary-eyed monologue about betrayal, dreams, and how even your own blood can't handle your brilliance. Within hours, it had 32,000 views and a comment section full of people calling me a sellout, a control freak, and a tech-stifling landlord. He'd framed himself as the victim. And the worst part? It worked. Family friends, some of whom I hadn't heard from in years, started calling. People I used to babysit for. Church folks. My old middle school math teacher. I saw Trevor's video, they'd say. Is everything okay? Not one of them asked me for my side. Even my Aunt Liz reposted it with the caption, "So heartbreaking when families don't support each other. Rooting for you, Trevor." The next time I saw my parents, they looked at me like I'd broken something sacred. "You're going to ruin your brother's life," Mom said, her voice cold. "He's got traction now. Followers. Momentum." Dad added, "You'll never be able to undo this damage once it goes public." "It already is public," I said. "Because Trevor made it that way. Because none of you stopped to ask if he was telling the truth." "He feels like it's his house," Mom whispered. "You've been gone so long." That was their justification now. My absence. Like being in Chile for work somehow made me less entitled to the home I bought, the mortgage I paid, the walls I painted myself. So I followed my lawyer's advice. I documented everything. Every post Trevor made. Every receipt he left behind. Every comment accusing me of being a bitter control freak. I installed motion-activated cameras outside the house. Changed the Wi-Fi password. Saved copies of the forged loan application in 3 different places. Because Trevor wasn't leaving. Instead, he submitted a packet of legal nonsense, a backdated lease agreement claiming I'd granted him temporary startup residency in exchange for equity discussions. It was printed on HiveLab letterhead. My lawyer rolled her eyes. "It's flimsy at best, but it's meant to delay. He wants to stay in the house as long as possible while keeping the narrative in his favor." So the waiting game began. Each day dragged by like molasses. I stayed at the motel, fielding calls from more people who only knew Trevor's version of the story. One guy from church even told me, "You know, not everyone's built for innovation. Maybe you just don't get it." I stopped answering calls altogether. At night, I lay on the stiff motel bed and stared at the popcorn ceiling, wondering how I'd become the villain in my own story. Trevor had stolen my home, my money, my peace. And still, somehow, I was the one being asked to make peace. Eviction day came on a Wednesday morning, gray skies and all. A sheriff's deputy stood at the edge of my driveway with a clipboard in one hand and a holstered sidearm on his hip. Behind him, a 3-man crew waited with toolkits and utility vests, ready to dismantle whatever tech jungle Trevor had bolted into the walls. Trevor came out of the house holding his phone, already recording. "This is Caleb Morrison," he said, pointing at me like I was some kind of war criminal. "This man is evicting his own brother. From the house we built together. From the dream we nurtured." I didn't say a word. The deputy gestured for Trevor to step aside. "You've been served proper notice. This is a court-ordered removal. You need to let us proceed. You're all complicit." Trevor shouted, pacing backwards, still filming. "Innovation doesn't happen inside a box, man. You can't patent passion." The crew moved past him and into the house. One guy quietly muttered, "Jesus Christ," when he saw the inside. The whole place had transformed into a sci-fi scrapyard. Wires drooped from the ceiling like jungle vines. Battery packs the size of bricks were duct taped to boards along the hallway. The smell of melted plastic still lingered from the fire weeks ago. One of the crew guys pointed at a wall panel glowing faintly. "Did he splice power from the dryer outlet?" "Looks like it," another said, and looped it into a bypass box. It took them 2 full days. They had to strip out every mounted propeller stand, every fan rig, every hacked-together workstation. One of the 3D printers had fused into the countertop. The garage door mechanism had been rewired to work as a drone catapult. It launched on command with a string-pulled springboard. The team took photos of everything for liability reasons. Trevor continued live-streaming all of it. When the sheriff's team removed his VR racing rig, he started sobbing, real tears, collapsing onto the floor with the headset clutched in his arms. "You're taking everything I built," he whispered. "You're killing HiveLab. You're trespassing," the deputy replied, flat. Right around the final hour, my parents showed up. They rushed out of the car like they were arriving at a funeral. Mom wore a hoodie and no makeup, something I hadn't seen in years. Dad looked exhausted, holding a grocery bag like he thought he might still win someone over with snacks. "Caleb," Mom pleaded. "Please. You don't have to do this." "He's your brother," Dad added. "You're kicking your own family into the street." "No," I said. "I'm kicking a scam artist out of my home." Trevor didn't look at me. He just filmed their sobbing, capturing every second like it would make a compelling clip later. The team finished up around 6. The wiring was disconnected. The power systems were patched. I'd hired a separate contractor to handle the walls and insulation. Final cost? Still unknown. The estimate was already 5 digits. That night, I walked through my house for the first time in months. It was empty, quiet, gutted, but mine again. In the silence, I stood where my studio used to be and imagined the chords I hadn't played in almost 2 years. Then I sat on the floor and started calculating the real cost, not just in dollars, but in trust, time, and the last fragile strands of family that had finally burned away. It's been 6 months since the eviction. The studio's back. Not just rebuilt, but better. New monitors, fresh panels, tighter wiring, and a soundproofing setup I couldn't have afforded 2 years ago. I call it the bunker. Not because it's hidden away, but because it's finally safe. I sleep in my own bed again. I make coffee in my own kitchen. I play music without needing to rent time or dodge a swarm of microdrones zipping through my hallway. Trevor? He's facing restitution charges. Turns out forged loans don't just vanish because you called them spiritual co-investments. His online following collapsed fast once he stopped posting. No drones. No drama. No more content. The investors he hinted at never existed. The brand equity he bragged about was just a GoDaddy domain name and a Canva logo. I heard he's couch surfing now, trying to bootstrap a new venture, something about wearable thought trackers or digital dreams. It's hard to keep up with the nonsense. I don't bother trying anymore. My parents cut me off completely. They sent one final email, well, Mom did. It was 2 lines. You didn't just evict Trevor. You evicted us too. We hope you're happy. I never replied. And honestly, some nights, I do wonder if I went too far. Not because I regret it, but because silence has a way of echoing louder than shouting. I grew up thinking family was this unbreakable thing, something stronger than truth, or fairness, or even safety. Now I know better. But not everyone turned away. About a month ago, I got a call from my Aunt Melinda. She's my mom's older sister, the one who moved to Oregon years ago after some long-forgotten family fight. She spoke gently, like she wasn't sure I'd pick up at all. I saw the post, she said. All that mess online. It reminded me of when Trevor borrowed my car in college and totaled it. Claimed it was a gift. Your parents made me apologize for getting upset. There was a long pause. I just wanted to say I should have seen it sooner. I'm sorry. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't change my life. But it meant something. Maybe more than anyone in this family had ever said out loud. Since then, I've leaned into the silence. Therapy's been weirdly helpful, even if I don't always know what to say. I've made friends at the local studio, people who care about music, not appearances. I'm working on a solo album for the first time since college. One track's called Flight Risk. It's not subtle, but it's honest. Some days I miss having a family. Birthdays are quiet. Holidays even quieter. But for the first time, I don't feel like I'm bracing for disappointment every time the phone rings. I don't check Trevor's social media anymore. I don't reread my mother's last email. I don't wait for an apology that isn't coming. This house is mine again. My space. My rules. And when I hit play on a new mix, it fills the room with sound that's finally, completely mine. That's peace. Not perfect, but earned.